Um, and generally, actually, now the atheists themselves. So we see people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins. And I mean, from my reading of reading Harris's works or Dawkins's works, there's definitely seems to be a clear and systematic attack um, against Islam and against the Muslims in particular. And I found this very strange because of the fact that, I mean, as an atheist, surely you should be, against all religions because you don't believe in any religion. But there, I mean, Harris in particular, and you've mentioned some tweets of Dawkins in the book as well. But when you read their books, they will mention things like, Islam will be the thing that will cause the clash of civilizations. It will be the thing that will bring the West down to its knees. So we need to stop it. We need to prevent it as much as possible. So I mean, why do you think it's the case that they, in particular, constantly pick Islam as being the religion to attack in the West when there are
I
lots
believe
of other religions?
the reason for that is because Islam has an alternative political system to the uh, democratic, cooperative, or banking system that runs the West today, meaning this neoliberalism or selective human rights approach that we have in the West. Islam gives an alternative, not only in terms of crime and punishment, but also in terms of judiciary, in terms of governance, economic system. Islam has an alternative lifestyle. So, unlike Buddhism or Christianity or Hinduism, Islam has an entire economic system. So, we know, for instance, economically, if people adopted the Islamic economic system, the banking system, including the IMF, the World Bank, the American National Treasury, all these bodies will be affected by an Islamic system of governance, which will bring people back to real currency of gold and silver, remove interest and usury. What the IMF does is by loaning, giving out big loans to developing countries, developing because they were pillaged in the first place by those same Western nations. And then when they left the post-colonial period or the neo-colonial period has a new way of colonizing those same places like South Africa and other parts of Africa and Asia. So Islam gives an alternative to those people and gives an alternative to people in the West. So when they talk about clash of civilizations, really, civilization cannot clash with civilization. One is civilization and the other is barbaric. So they view Islam as barbaric, while Muslims view corporal capitalism as barbaric in how it destroys countries through loans, which people, when they cannot pay back loans, what do? They plunder resources. And they will not only plunder resources, they will cut down rainforests to make land for farming, excessive farming, which then makes a desertification of the land. The land is no longer fertile, it becomes desert. The lungs of the world are burnt down, or cut. The wood is cut down to sell. Why do they need to go to such extremes? To pay back loans to a banking system. But Islam has an alternative economic system. It has morality and ethics, which are not found amongst New Atheism. I mean, New Atheism does not have an alternative ethical code. They may claim a humanist philosophy, but humanist philosophy is not fixated in terms of its ethical code.
Mhm.
Whatever, if you remember Lawrence Krauss, for instance, accepting incest as something acceptable as long as it doesn't lead to pregnancy and deformity in birth. So Islam is seen as a threat because Islam has an alternative to what the West has to offer. And therefore, Islam needs to be made out to be barbaric. And the way it is made out to be barbaric is through Sharia law. So this is why in the chapter I cover extensively in chapter 6 Sharia law, or theologically speaking, or metaphysically speaking, God needs to be made out to be a despotic Saddam Hussein, or a cosmic dictator. And therefore, in chapter 4, I covered the problem of evil and why God creates evil and whatnot. So Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins really see Islam as a threat because Islam has an alternative political system. And it's not just a belief. And this is why today Muslims in China, the Uyghur Muslims, for instance, face heavy punishment from the Chinese government, or a brainwashing totalitarian camps where of thought reform, where thought reform is carried out. And the Chinese are well renowned for thought reform, brainwashing, because those Uyghurs are seen as a threat because Islam itself has an alternative to Chinese communism, or the communism that China has today. But what will happen, as happens every 100 years, is within those same regions, Islam rises again. So like Russian communism in the past 100 years attempted to extinguish Islam from Central Asia, Islam has arisen in those areas again. So Islam never finishes. The light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never extinguished. But the response to your question is that they see Islam as a political, existential political threat, or an ontological reality that they must face as an alternative to corporate capitalism, or what they refer to as democracy, which in reality it's a form of hypocrisy, because when Palestinians vote in Hamas as their official government, Hamas is removed. So the democracy goes down the drain whenever it suits them.